So the first license we'll talk about are distilled spirits plants. And you need to get a license for the following activities: distillation, distilling alcohol, blending, processing, or rectifying alcohol, which basically means, are you mixing spirits together? Are you, adding sugar, adding flavors, things like that? Rectifying, are you cutting the proof down? So if you're receiving, 192 proof neutral grain spirits, are you adding a bunch of water to that to make it 80 proof and bottle it as vodka? Warehousing, which means storage of bulk spirits. You can think of it as, a 50-gallon bourbon barrel, or up to, a 500-gallon tank that holds alcohol. Also, bottling. So, and that should be pretty self-explanatory. You don't need necessarily, if you're registering for a DSP, you don't need to do all of those activities. Someone that just receives alcohol from another distillery, like if they receive neutral grain spirits from another distillery and they want to make liqueur only, they're not going to distill anything on them. They still need to get a DSP. They would receive the spirits, they blend it with sugar and flavors, bottle it, store it. They would need a DSP just for the blending, the processing, rectifying, warehousing, and bottling operations. You would need it if you just wanted to bottle, if you just wanted to receive spirits and private bottle it for somebody else. You never wanted to make anything yourself, just bottling it. You need a DSP. Only registered DSPs may produce distilled spirits, and unlike for beer and wine, this production of distilled spirits for personal use is expressly prohibited. So all of the stuff you see on moonshiners, are they actually distilling the product? Are they running water through the stills? Don't know, but it's production of distilled spirits, personal use, it's prohibited. It's allowed in a few other countries, but not the U.S. So basic requirements that you might need for to qualify for your distilled spirits plant. You need to be in the proper location, which that means you can't have it in your house. You can't have it on a boat. You can't have it on other vessels. Basically any place that it would make it difficult for TTB to enforce the rules and collect the revenue, or to ensure that there's safe protection of the revenue. You can't have a DSP there. The application can be sort of arduous, but in general, TTB wants to know, the corporate structure. They want to see your, if for an LLC operating agreement. They want to see that you're certified by the state. They want to know where the plant's going to be located. For that, they even want the old meets and bounds descriptions. 4 degrees north by whatever degrees south by thence by this and that. They want those. They want that description of the plat of land where the distillery will be located. They also want to know about the construction. Are the floors concrete? Are you using, how are the walls constructed? Is there 1, 2, 3 buildings? Where will the activities take place inside the buildings? Then they want to know about the plant operations, and by that, if you set up as a distillery, they're going to want to know how you are producing spirits from an original source, and by that they mean you're receiving a bunch of grain. What do you do with it? Does it come in through, comes in through a door? You run it through a malt mill, crack malt. You make a mash, add yeast, ferment to 5 to 15% alcohol by volume, and then you run the mash through a distillation. Then you do a second distillation. Then you run it through this and that. They basically want to know that you have some idea of what you're doing. If you've never distilled a spirit in your entire life, there's courses that you can go to learn how to do it. That's another thing. As you set up your DSP, you can't practice. You could run water through the stills, but you can't start practicing and producing distilled spirits. Other things they want to know: major equipment. By that, I mean stills, whether you have a column still or a pot still, and if it's a column still, how many plates does it have? Any tanks, fermentation tanks, storage tanks. You don't need to tell them about the bottling line or anything like that, but it's basically stills, tanks, and a few other things. They also want to know about the plant security, and that is primarily to ensure that the revenue is protected, so that nobody can break into your DSP, your distillery, and run off with untaxed paid liquor. They ask questions like, do you have guards or do you have an alarm system? You don't have to have sophisticated security to get a distilled spirits plant approved. You just need to have something. You need to have locks that are certified by a specific section of the CFR. You need to, everything needs to be locked down at night, things like that. But, you don't need to have armed guards patrolling the premises. You don't need to have, a sophisticated alarm system or robots or anything like that. It just needs to be secure, and you need to be able to prove that to the government. They also ask, some environmental questions, basically like who provides your electricity, who provides your gas, do you have any solid waste, do you have any liquid waste? And these are very basic questions, and they're not too difficult to answer. For the most part, we tell clients, talk about them briefly. You do things in line with some other, other distilleries. You have paper, packaging materials, spent grains, things like that. And then they also want a bond, and the bond is to cover the spirits on the premises that are not yet tax paid. So there's bonded premises, and if you can see on the sample floor plan I have, you outline where your bonded premises are, and that can either be by walls or even a stripe on the floor, but it has to be clear. This is where the production takes place, where you produce your spirits, where the federal excise tax has not yet been paid. Once you remove it from the bonded premises once you've bottled it and you're ready to sell it to retail or have somebody pick it up, remove it from bond, pay the federal excise tax, and the bond covers the untaxed paid portion before you remove it from bond.